Hi all, we are the Blue Team and we have developed a system, Blue Team Automated Evaluation System for the IT 601 course. The Blue Team is Alex, Sahitya and Khamar. The features that we are going to discuss in this presentation are Google Forms, website, web pages, the evaluatees report with the averages, deviation, collection of comments, graphs and charts, the email subsystem which sends emails like registration email, reminder email, confirmation email, report to evaluatee and report to the evaluator. The technologies that we used are Extend Hosting, WordPress, AppScript, and getting into detail of each component of these, we developed a system for evaluation and named it as Blue Team Automated Evaluation System. For this, we designed a website www.blueteam601.extend.host.com. To access the site, the user should initially log in, and there are three different users for the site, namely admin, professor, and evaluator. The admin has complete access to the site. He can add users, create roles, add blogs, add pages, add posts, can customize menu items, and can edit all the things in the site. Some of them are A5 custom login to customize the login page, members plugin to create different roles. Using the members plugin, we created two roles, professor and evaluator. The roles allow us to limit the accessibility of the pages. The professor can view only professor acceptance page and create event pages. And he has no access to the presentation and paper pages, whereas the evaluator have access to presentation and paper evaluation pages and can't view professor acceptance and create event pages. Coming to our site, we embedded forms into our site to enable the evaluators to evaluate presentations and papers. We embedded two forms, one for presentation evaluation and the other for paper evaluation. The pages that we added to our site are Blue Team Evaluation Form, Professor Acceptance Page, Create Event Page, and Blue Team Paper Evaluation Form. Coming to the Professor Acceptance Page, this is accessible only to the professor. The idea behind it is that the professor can view the reports, and if he finds the reports to be valid, he can send the reports to the evaluatees by just hitting a button. Here, if he goes to the professor acceptance page, he can view reports of the presentation, and if he finds them to be valid, he can click on the email report to evaluatee button on the top. And if he clicks on the professor paper acceptance, he can view the reports for the paper, and if he finds the reports to be valid, he can click email report to evaluatee button on the top. To design this page, we used web app with Google scripting. The script can be seen here. Here, we are creating a button in the user interface. For the button, we provided a handler. Once the button is clicked, the handler passes control to the function, and the function will send emails to all the evaluatees.
Coming to the Blue Team Presentation Evaluation Form page, it consisting of Presentation Evaluation Form. We designed this form for the presentation evaluation. So we added a YouTube presentation link for the corresponding names so that it can easy for the evaluator to view the presentation before evaluating. We validated in such a way that only one person can evaluate for one time. After selecting the evaluator has to grade the presentation based on the rubrics. And here is all the factors shown will be given grading. And the evaluator tech ID is validated to be an 8-digit number. Once the evaluator submits the response, it gets stored into the spreadsheet and the responses are moved to the corresponding tabs of the evaluatee automatically. Here it looks like this. In this tab, the averages of evaluation is calculated and the average of each factor is calculated and also the overall average is calculated and the deviation is also calculated and stored in a corresponding cell. Charts are used for graphical representation of the responses. We added a start date and end date to the form so that the professor can set a start date and the end date to the evaluation. This is so flexible that the professor can make the form active for 10 minutes for an year based on his requirement. The paper form has only some features except the link of the presentation and the rubrics. The scripting we used looks like this. We created an array of names. The my function moves the corresponding responses from the main sheet to the corresponding tabs of the evaluatee. Calculate column average calculates the averages of every factor. The function get average for the range is used for calculating the average of an evaluation. The function getAverage of vertical range is used for calculating the average of all the averages or overall average. The function calculates calculates the deviation and stores in a corresponding cells of the evaluatee tab. Here we can see it calculated the deviation and it will highlight the score which is more than the deviation. That we set it a deviation as 1. To set the start date and the end date, the script should be in the form script editor. The start date specifies as a form open date and the end date format should be YYMM dated followed by the time. Form end date specify as a form close date. After the end date, form gets disabled and if anyone tries to access, a message is displayed and the form has no longer accepts. We are having a number of emails being sent from our system, so we have an email subsystem in which we are sending an email for the registration for users to get registered to our website. The email looks like this. The reminder email is sent to all the evaluators to complete the evaluation on time. Here we set the trigger to send the reminder email before 2 days of the end date. The email looks like this. The confirmation email is sent to the evaluator after the evaluator submits the response. The email looks like this. The email is sent to the evaluatee, which consisting of summary of all his reports with all scores and comments after the professor accepts. The email looks like this. The evaluator also receives an email which consisting of all the summary of all his evaluation that he did. The email looks like this.
Hello everyone, this is Alex here. I'm going to continue by talking about some of the benefits of Google Apps Script. Google Apps Scripting has a lot of benefits. Some of the benefits it offers are familiarity. If you've ever done any Java scripting, you'll notice that the syntax and the behavior is very similar, if not the exact same as JavaScript development. Then it also offers a flexible development environment. The IDE is in the cloud, so you can just go to scripts.google.com, log in with your Google account, and you can start writing away. You can develop whatever kind of app you want there, and you can even choose to tie it to a container app much later. We'll discuss this in a little bit. It has built-in source control and versioning. You will find that with Google Apps Script, the IDE in the cloud automatically saves as you type. You can always revert changes. You can also create versions of your applications at intervals. And when you're creating those versions, you can put in like a note to say what the new feature is, like added a new form. You keep working, and then when you create a new version in the future, you can add added functionality to the form or tied it into database and things like that. In our application, we actually ended up with like 36 versions because we're so paranoid about saving the files. But you get the point. It gives you a lot of control and a lot of flexibility, and dare I say 9 lives if you want, because you can pretty much play with it as much as you want and explore, knowing that you can always safely revert your changes or go back to a previous version which you knew was working. So that's kind of nice that it gives you that feature. It also tracks who made the changes, so you can go into like view change history, I think is a menu option, and in there you can see like Sahitya saved this file on this day at this time, and then it tells you what the changes were. Like it actually shows you the script. So that's kind of nice too, and we can kind of see who's like working on our app, make sure the professor isn't logging in and helping us finish our application. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so that's one of the features as well. And then we'll look in here. One of the other features we have is the cached mode. This means that when you're developing, like say if you lose internet connection intermittently, you can always continue typing in your browser. It doesn't like automatically kick you out. You can just like keep typing, and the only caveat with that is you can't run your code to test it until the next time you're connected, obviously, because the code always runs in the cloud, and you can't save it too as well. So any changes you make could be lost if you don't get reconnected and then save them properly. So those are the only 2 caveats, but it's just that's kind of one of the limitations of developing in the cloud. But we never ran into that issue because obviously we're always either on campus or we had internet connections at home, so we're good for that. There is an add-in for Eclipse for Google Apps Scripting, which you can install that plugin and you can do your development locally, but this came with the version control and so many other features that we just decided it was just great to keep working there. And then we could always collaborate right in there. You could tell when someone else was logged in and making changes, and you could actually have like 3 people, all 3 members of the team, working on the script at the same time. Excuse me. You could actually have all 3 members of the team making changes at the same time. Like I could have one file open, Sahitya could have a second file open, and Kamar could have the 3rd file open, and we'll be developing and saving. So that's pretty nice. Now, some of the drawbacks we ran into, we didn't find a way to secure the evaluation form page directly. There is a workaround for this, but there was no option to secure the page directly. And the reason was we had a free Google account, obviously. Like any Gmail account, any free Google account you set up can create a form and share it. You can't require people to log in to access the form. If you had like a small business that bought Google services, or like a school that bought Google's hosting services, and you actually pay for the services one way or another, then you have that feature with the form. So being that one of the requirements for this course was that we try to stay away from spending money, except when it came to the microphones, which had to be nice. Then we, since paying and buying the actual service was not an option, we had to get creative with the solution, the workaround for securing the page, so not just anyone can go in and pollute the data. And for this solution, we actually have the Purple team to thank. Shout out to the Purple team. They went ahead and they did some research and they found Extend Hosting, which gives you free hosting. My colleague already covered this, but it comes with MySQL Server. It comes with PHP installed. We get a free install of WordPress, which is built with PHP. And being that it's PHP, it works very well with MySQL Server. Now there's a variety of plugins that are available for use with WordPress. One of the plugins we used was the Members plugin for managing access to like various pages within our website and granting access to different people, which was kind of nice. It was free as well. Some of the pages that we did this to, that we secured in WordPress, are the professor's acceptance page, the event setup page, which I'll cover in more detail later, and then the user access administration page for the administrator. Now, different types of Google Apps scripts. Some of them are add-in scripts that are tied into container objects. Like you could write a script that is an add-in for Google Documents, a Google Sheet, or Google Slides, or Gmail, and some other Google applications. And then you can also write standalone scripts that are deployed as web applications. And these scripts, even though they are standalone, can still make calls to like the Google Gmail API or the Google Sheet API. It's just they don't have to be actually tied to a container. They can exist on their own and can be accessed independently. And this is like a simplified architecture of what our current setup is. So basically, we wrote a standalone script and deployed it as a web application. And then the second step, we embedded the web application in a Google Sites page. And the reason we did this is we found that embedding the web application directly in a HTML page, like say in our WordPress page, didn't work very well. It either didn't work, period, or it would break every so often randomly. Like 1 minute the button was there for you to click and run the script, the next minute the button was not there, and there was nothing we could do about that. Checking through the Google Forms and like some other complaints that some users before us had logged, it looks like it's just the way it works because of compatibility issues. And so your best bet for getting 100% performance and reliability was embedding it in a Google Sites page, which is what we did. And since we already had the hosting set up, we had set up a database, we had set up WordPress and our users and all that, we didn't want to have to migrate back to migrate all our changes back to Google Sites, which would have been a ton of work. And so we just stuck with our WordPress and went ahead and embedded the Google Sites page again in our WordPress page. And if you're starting to get confused, I don't blame you. Now, some of the pros and cons with this setup. Pro, the web application works reliably, which is great. Also, it comes with authentication in that you can share a deployed web app with specific people. So anyone that isn't specified on like the list of people who can access it can't access it. And then also, that's about it for the pros. For the cons, it's redundant. Like you saw the picture here for the architecture, we're embedding a web app in a Google Sites page and then embedding the Google Sites page in a web page, which is it's bad architecture, bad engineering practice, if you will. It's kind of redundant, right? And one of the problems with this is people have to log in twice. First, they have to authenticate to Google to make sure they have access to that deployed web app, and then they have to log into the WordPress site to actually access the page that contains the web app. So it's kind of inconvenient, what it boils down to. So that's one of the cons that we found, but that's what happens with research. Is you live and you learn, in a sense, I guess. All right, so I'm just gonna stop boring you with all this theoretical information, and I'll pull up the actual page and go over some of the code and the page. So this is the final look of the event setup page. Obviously, this Google Sites page is embedded in a web app, which my colleague already showed earlier in the video. I'm embedded in the WordPress page, I should say. So it's not like this watered down. You have like beautiful, fancy HTML all around it. But this is the core of it. This is the actual web app right here. And this is the code. I'm going to start from the code.gs file. The GS extension, as you can imagine, stands for Google Script. And basically, this is the core of the web application here, the do-get function. All Google Apps scripts expect a do-get function. Just consider it the equivalent of the main function in a traditional object-oriented programming language like Java or C# or C or anything like that. So the do-get function is the main function. And we start here by creating an instance of a user interface. So UI app, we just created an instance here and we set the title, project owner administration system, which is what you see up here in the title bar. And then we create some elements that we added to it. We created a button, we created a label and a text field for accepting the name of the project. We created a label for the start and end date and also the date picker. And then we created a grid for holding all of them because these elements tend to float, these tiny elements around here. And that's why they're all ordered properly and structured properly here. Like it's not floating around with like start dates here and end dates all the way on the right or something. And then we went ahead and created a panel here. This vertical panel is for the overall page and just used to stack things vertically. So we put in the grid here first, obviously, and then next we put this section for the student information, which it puts right underneath it because it's a vertical panel, and then the evaluation criteria right underneath it, and then the text area right underneath it, and then this button right underneath. So the vertical panel which we created here helped us accomplish all that very easily. And then obviously I'm not going to bore you with the details of how we created the student information entry and the criteria entry sections, but they were created using flexboxes, and then we have buttons on the right for adding a new row, and you can also like delete a row if you change your mind, and just kind of enter all your student information here. And then you can enter all the evaluation criteria like title slide, confidence, thoroughness, pretty much whatever you want the students to be evaluated on, you can enter right here. And then you can enter like any other guide you need, like say maybe 1 is for very good and 5 is for horrible, or vice versa. And then once you're done entering all these details on the start and end dates, you can just click create event and it wires it up for you. And after adding all these things together, the do-get function just returns the entire application to the browser, which is what the user sees here. Setup.js just has a bunch of functions that are used to add a folder for the project, creates the form, creates the spreadsheet, wire up the form and the spreadsheet, and then enter all the individual student tabs to it. This is all very detailed stuff. I won't bore you with it, but just also know that this third file here is used to house all the functions that handle the user interaction. So this file here contains all the functions that enable me do this. Like I can, remove and add. All those functions are handling this via click events when I click on these buttons. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick demo here. I will pause the video, I'll enter all these details, and then we'll come back and see how it works. Alright, so you can see here that I was able to fill out the form successfully. Have my title as final exam evaluation. I have the event start date and end dates, and I have the name of the students here, Alex Oragu, Sahitya Kumar, and then the email addresses, tech IDs, and then the criteria for evaluating the students, which will be used to create the grid. Put in some text here for further hints on how to grade the person, like the criteria. 1 is for the lowest, 4 is for the highest, things like that. Actually, let me just change this here to hit create event. You get a confirmation message here, telling us it was set up successfully, and we can now access the project folder from our Google Drive. If I switch back to my Google Drive here, it's going to do its work and pop up. Final exam, there it is. Can go into the folder, and I see I have a form here and I have a spreadsheet here. I'm going to start with the spreadsheet. You see the spreadsheet was set up. You have a list of all the destination, all the columns from the form, which we will see shortly. And then this is where the responses are being saved, and then the tabs for the individual students are created using the names that I entered. And then if we click form and go to live form, you will see the actual form that was created and tied to it. So you can see it actually used the names that I put in here. I can select Alex, and then the grading criteria that I entered were also used to create this grade here. I can do that. I don't know why I would be so mean to myself, but there you have it. Put good here. And then hit submit. Thank you very much. Your response has been recorded. When I go back here, you'll see it was dumped in the timestamp and everything. That's a quick demo of how it works. It takes the user out of a lot of the work. Now, some things still have to be like copied and pasted and attached, like the script specifically that does all the emails and the confirmations and calculations and things like that will just have to be pasted and attached to the spreadsheet so it can work. But it just takes a lot of the setup out of the hands of the users, because one of the issues that we ran into was for us specifically when we started out, if the names weren't entered exactly how they showed up in the tab, then we ran into some issues where it would not recognize where to drop the data. So doing it this way kind of reduces the chances of them having that error. Actually, it brings it down to 0, so they don't have to worry about entering the names twice there and here. So that's it. That's how our project setup works. Everything here was set up in the folder, so you can go back to this page and you can just kind of refresh here and set up a new folder, and it'll create yet another folder, and you can have like multiple events running at the same time, which is kind of convenient, and it's very easy, all from this one page. All right, I'm gonna pass this back to my colleague who's gonna round it up for us.
The Agile management tool we used is Target Process 3, which is free hosting for 5 people, and here is a tool hierarchy looks like. In the target process, the products are divided into the projects, and the projects are divided into the features, and the features are divided into the user stories, and the user stories are divided into tasks. The collections of features and the user stories are called as sprints, and the collection of sprints and the user stories are called as release. Coming to our system, we created a product as 601 research topics under the project as automated evaluation system, and one feature in the target process is that we can assign an individual people to the project and also can assign a blue team which involves all the team persons. In the main work tab, we can see all the user stories and the tasks performed by that person. In the backlog tab shows all the user stories according to the sprints and the user stories. If it is not grayed out, then it seems to be not completed. Estimation shows the points of estimation of user stories. Release plan shows the different user stories with a released on a particular release or sprint. Task code specifies all the tasks that corresponding to the user stories. People tab shows the person assigned to the project and the roles of a particular person in the project. In user story mapping tab, we can see features corresponding to the user stories. In work by person, we can see all the tasks and the user stories done by a particular person. In feature planning by release, we can see all the user stories and the tasks corresponding to that release. One of the best features in this tool is that we can create our own views. according to our requirement and also customize or set up the existing view according to our requirement. Coming to the timesheet looks very simple and with all the corresponding tasks and the user stories. Coming to the reports, we'll be having a burn down chart for a particular sprint and for the whole release. This is a burn down chart for our old release, and we can also see the particular sprints burn down charts. And we also having a cumulative diagram which shows all the user stories with the specified colors which are in completed and in progress. Corresponding to the dates. This is about our Agile tool.